Welcome. We're glad to have all of you here this morning. Thank you for getting up on a beautiful Saturday morning to join us for this. My name is David Lou Cummings. I'm the president of the Kootenai County Republican Women Federated, and we are sponsoring this town hall this morning. We hope that you have your questions answered and walk out of here knowing more about the candidates that are running for school board in our area. I'd like to announce our moderator, or introduce our moderator this morning. It's Bruce Matari. Little unexpected, but Bruce will tell you how he got here and why he's here this morning. He'll give you an overview of what it's going to look like this morning and how you can engage the candidates. Bruce?
Thank you, David Lou. My name is Bruce Matari, and Ed couldn't make it here. He had some medical issues that came up, and so they asked if I could step up and moderate today's debate, and so I was happy to do that. You're stuck with me. I also happen to be your county commissioner. And one of the things that is really great about seeing so many people come out here on a day like today is because it's one of the last nice days we have for the rest of the year. And you chose to spend it to come here. And I'll tell you, after college back in the early 90s, when I was looking for that real job, ended up doing a little stint selling cars for a while at a dealership. And I remember on beautiful Saturdays, people would show up at the dealership, and I'd approach them and they'd say, "Oh, I'm just looking." I said, "No, you're not just looking." And no one says, "What do you want to do today? Let's go to a car dealer lot and just look." And so I know that by you being here today, it means a lot. And so we're going to do our best to try to get the candidates to explain their positions and ask good questions, and so that way you walk away so you know who the people are who are running for these seats. And with that said, let me lay out some of the ground rules. Each of the candidates will be given 5 minutes to introduce themselves and discuss the issues that are important to them about this race. One of the chief components to today is that we're all going to be cordial and respectful to each other. Okay? So after the candidates speak, then we're going to go into Q&A, questions from the audience. We have some ladies here standing in the back. Index cards, you can get them right outside the door. Complete the index card, write your question. If you have a specific candidate you'd like the question to go to, just write that down. I'll collect the cards, I'll ask the questions. Okay, the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer the questions. And if they mention an opponent, the opponent will get 1 minute to rebut. Now, this is a Republican Women event, and Republican Women plays a very important role in our community. And so if you are not a member, I encourage you to please join. Now, what I'm about to say will affect about half of you in this room. The guys can join too. Okay? I did, and you can too. So stay informed, come learn more about events like this. They do this whenever the elections come up, as well as introduce you to your elected officials so you can hear what they have to say. So if you're not a member, I encourage you to join. So with that said, let me introduce the candidates. On my far left is Yasmin Harris. She's running for Coeur d'Alene School Trustee, Zone 2. Next is Jimmy McAndrews, Coeur d'Alene School Trustee, Zone 2. In the center there is Matt Blatt, Coeur d'Alene Zone 3. To the right is Heather Tenbrink, Coeur d'Alene Zone 3. To our right, her left, Ramona Grissom, Lakeland Zone 2. And the last person on the far right, Michelle Thompson, Lakeland Zone 3. And I hope I did not butcher anyone's names, so forgive me. With that said, Yasmin, why don't you go ahead and start, and you have 5 minutes to introduce yourself and talk about the issues and why you're running.
Thank you. Are we on?
Yep.
Great. Well, good morning. First off, I'd like to thank the Kootenai County Republican Women Federated for hosting this event. My name is Yasmin Harris, and as mentioned, I'm running for Coeur d'Alene School Board for Zone 2. I have two awesome boys in the Coeur d'Alene School District. They're in the 2nd and the 4th grade. And I am a wife to my husband, Todd, the bearded gentleman in the middle, retired U.S. Marine. For the past several years, I've been on staff right down the street in Coeur d'Alene at Pathway Church as their Director of Ministry Development. However, my career before that was as a Director of Finance for a landscape architect and design firm. The reason I'm running for this position is quite simple. I am a proud mom of the Coeur d'Alene School District. However, I know that there are several areas of concerns within the district, and I plan to not only address those, but to be a strong voice for the parents, for the students, and for taxpayers, as well as the teachers. I have an absolute interest in protecting our children and the future generation of Coeur d'Alene. My goals are to help elevate student achievement, to help bring budget clarity, and to fight back against bullies. These are actually the platforms to which I am running, but I can only do this if I get elected on November 7th. I look forward to the questions this evening, and the other thing that I just wanted to share is this, a few days ago, I was learning about different issues that are happening currently in the schools when it comes to parents' rights in education. And that is such a heavy topic on my heart. So I really want to be that voice for the parents and for their rights to be heard, because these are their kids and our kids matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. Next is Jimmy McAndrews.
Good morning, everybody. First off, thanks to the Cooney County Republican Women Federated for hosting today. I know it's a lot of work to put these on, and it takes a lot of organization, so thank you for that. Thank you, Pastor Tim, and the folks here at Alter for giving up, unfortunately, one of the last days in the 70s in Cooney County, the days that we look forward to. So, my name is Jimmy McAndrew. I've lived in North Idaho for 42 years, called this place home. I grew up in St. Mary's, Idaho, and I am the lucky husband of Julie. She's not here right now because she deserves a day off today, although thank you for being here. And we have two wonderful children in this Coeur d'Alene School District. My son attends Hayden Meadows, and my daughter attends Canfield. They're 9 and 12 years old. I feel that I've been called for this position over the last 20 plus years in Coeur d'Alene. I've given everything I have, time, sweat, tears, energy, effort, into making this place a better place for everybody, because it has blessed our socks off. So for the last 20 years, in addition to what I do professionally, I'm Vice President of Real Estate for Mountain West Bank, great company. I also have just served the community in various leadership roles. I co-founded the Coeur group in 2004. And through that, we started the flagship project, the locker program. It affects almost every school in Cooney County. 0 taxpayer dollars go into that project. It's self-funded. 300 kids in need get to frequent these lockers every week to get toiletries, hygiene products, school supplies, coats, socks, whatever they need, so that they can focus their energy and effort into their academics, okay? Those are the kind of win-win-win situations that I look forward to delivering to the Coeur d'Alene School District. My #1 priority is student achievement. Over the last 10 years, we have had 4 superintendents. You don't have to look very far to find out that one of the #1 criteria in a quality school and a high-achieving school is superintendent consistency, okay? So we've had 4 in the last 10 years. I had the same superintendent from the time I went to kindergarten to beyond when I graduated, so that's important to me. This last spring, for the first time in 10 years, the Coeur d'Alene School District has implemented a new strategy, a new strategic plan, and that strategic plan should be given the opportunity to sink or swim, and if it sinks, people should be held accountable. If it rises to the occasion, it should have the opportunity to affect students. There's a clear strategy. For the first time, focuses on student achievement. Think of that, for the first time in 10 years. And it strips away a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the last 10 years, and it gives measurable and attainable goals. I'm the kind of person that over the last 20 years in my own job, those are the things that I do. I look for results and I deliver on them, okay? In addition, I've managed, monitored, and balanced super lean project budgets, professionally and personally, and I'll deliver that to the taxpayer. And finally, we have issues here with affordability. The Coeur d'Alene School District deserves a seat at the table with all of our affected communities, because right now they don't have one to prepare. They're reactive rather than proactive when it comes to our growth. So those are things that I do in my everyday job already. I've done them at a high level. I operate at 125%, and those are the things that taxpayers, parents, the school, and ultimately kids. It's all about the kids. If the taxpayers win, the school district feels like they're supported and have the resources they need. Taxpayers feel like they're getting a good return on their investment, and parents feel heard and can see those results. The kids win, and that's what I'm going to deliver, I promise you. So, Jimmy McCann, please consider me November 7th.
Thank you, Jimmy. Next is Matt Platt, running Coeur d'Alene School District, Zone 3.
Good morning, and not to belabor the point, but thank you for this opportunity and all the hard work that went into setting up this forum. Frankly, I'd be more comfortable walking around than sitting at the chair. I retired after, well over 20 years of active duty. I was fortunate enough to navigate the globe and see a lot of different cultures and see a lot of different forms of government. I spent most of my time dealing with failing nation states and failed nation states. I advised ministers and general officers, and my career culminated over at the Pentagon, mostly providing the bad news, because nobody likes to hear the bad news. I did finally retire, decided that it was time to move on. My daughter deserves to grow up near her family, and my sister was living here, so we decided to move here and buy a house and settle down and stop moving around. After I became more involved in the school district, because being retired gives you a little extra time on your hands, I was really quite distraught. I was really quite distraught to find there were so many issues with our school system here. To use an analogy I've used a couple times before, it seems like our district is a rudderless ship just drifting around the lake. No one seems to be in charge. We run from crisis to crisis. Issues aren't resolved. So as I started looking at my campaign, I started looking at how I would break it down and organize it. I tell you what, the first thing I noticed was exploitation of our children. When you're a minor, adults are not supposed to cross that line of having certain types of discussions with your children, whether it's your personal politics, your beliefs on how families should be structured, or issues related to sex. These are not topics adults have with minor children.
That's right.
For some reason, it seems to be acceptable around the country to begin to have these conversations, and that needs to stop. The next thing I started noticing was the way the schools are funded here, the budget. It's a Frankenstein of a budget, I get it. But the issue is you see mismanagement at all levels. First, we're threatened during the levy that the bus routes will be canceled if we don't vote for the levy. And then what happens? Bus routes get canceled for folks further down south. There's no accountability. The next thing I notice is the Midtown Meeting Center. There's an effort to improve the Midtown Meeting Center, which benefits only the administration, and yet we still have issues at the schools with deferred maintenance and other things that need to be procured for our children. Now, it's great that we finally have a curriculum, which goes into the last topic. We finally have a curriculum for our kids. It's coherent and it's strategic. It's a great plan. And yet, the teachers were never given any time to put together class plans to take advantage of what the taxpayers just bought. Teachers, for some strange reason, are expected to spend their nights, weekends, and holidays in an uncompensated manner working on plans for the school. Nobody in this town would expect their employees to work off the clock to support your business. It's not acceptable. So, trying to bring it all together with all these issues that we see. My father, it's another analogy, my father told me something a long time ago. which was, it's an old accountant saying, consistency is not a mitigating factor for the perpetuation of error. Just because you always did it like that doesn't mean it's right. And with that, I intend to make some changes. We need to take responsibility, we need to take charge of our school system to make sure that our children are given a better education and that our community gets better and more productive employees coming out of these schools. Matt Black, running for Zone 3, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Matt. Next up is Heather Tenbrink, Coeur d'Alene, Zone 3.
Son?
Yes, it is.
I'm Heather, excuse me, I'm Heather Tenbrink. I currently represent Zone 3 on the school board. 2 years ago, there was a resignation in Zone 3, and I was one of the people who applied to fill that empty spot, and I was appointed to the school board in December of 2021. It's almost 2 years ago. I have lived with my, not loud enough? Okay. My husband, Chris, and I moved to Coeur d'Alene 19 years ago. So we have raised our family here. We have 4 children. All 4 of our children have attended schools in Zone 3. My children have attended Skyway, Woodland, and Lake City High School over the last 15 years. And for that 15 years, I've been an active volunteer in their schooling and involved in every school that they were in. I was particularly involved when they were in Skyway. I spent 5 years as the treasurer and then the president of the Skyway PTA. A little bit about my background. I have a bachelor's degree in science from Purdue University, and then I stayed home with my kids. I had 4 kids in 5 years, so I did stay-at-home mom for a while, and then when I was ready to join the workforce again, I went to NIC. I took some classes in accounting and economics, and I now work as a tax accountant for a CPA firm. As a member of the board, some of the things I have been proudest of have been our new strategic plan. That's actually the thing I am proudest of. Our old, it was technically called a strategic plan. It was not focused really on anything. It was many hundred pages, actually. And our community, 1, it didn't give us a good direction. 2, our community didn't support this plan. It included things like the equity framework that our community didn't support. So, a couple months ago, we actually, after a lot of work, passed a new strategic plan. This plan is focused on student achievement. It can be summarized in 2 pages. If you go to the Coeur d'Alene School District website and click on What's New, and then it'll have strategic plan link there, you can see there are dozens and dozens of specific goals to support this plan. So it's more than just 2 pages, but it can be summarized on 2 pages. And I'm excited to see us work through this plan and increase student achievement. I think that's one of the things everyone in our district and everyone in our community would like to see happen in our schools. So I'm super excited to work through that plan. I also have a goal to communicate better with our community, particularly around our budget. We do rely on our community to pass a supplemental levy for 25% of our budget. And so we need to make sure that our community understands what they're getting for that money and sees results from it. So I'm Heather Tenbrink, and I would appreciate your support on November 7th. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Next up is Ramona Grissom, Lakeland, Zone 2.
Am I on? I'm on. Hello, good morning everybody. I'm Ramona Grissom. I am the current trustee for Zone 2 in Lakeland and also the vice chair. As far as a platform, I would say that what I'm looking forward to doing, winning the election and continuing on with the work that we've been doing. One of the main focuses curriculum. I know it sounds odd that you would have a school district with no curriculum, but that's exactly what I inherited when I got voted onto the board. The teachers, it was up to them to find whatever they could find to come up with whatever lesson plan they might be able to come up with, and hopefully they were meeting a standard. I never thought that I would have to fight as hard as I have to convince the administration that a school district needs to have curriculum, and that the curriculum should be on a rotating schedule, and that every few years we would be implementing something that would be new to the students or a better education. I'm definitely education focused. I work hard to return the school district back to education. We have a lot of things in our education system nowadays that have nothing to do with reading, writing, and arithmetic. And our students learn a lot of other things except to read and write. So one of my main focuses being curriculum, education, standing up for the parents' voice. And I guess I attack things, or I look at things through flipping the power. In my mind, the power structure's been turned completely upside down. It's the power of the school districts throughout the state of Idaho have been handed over to administration. The trustees no longer have the power, and the parents definitely don't have the power. And that all needs to be fixed. For a long time in the state of Idaho, the school districts and the legislators have relied heavily on a certain school board association who's supposed to be for trustees and training trustees, and there is not a trustee, no, I take that back, there might be one now, involved in the training of trustees. The people that are training your trustees throughout the state of Idaho are teachers and administrators from the school districts. The statute and the IDAPA rules and the Idaho Constitution are extremely clear on what is and is not education. I was a big proponent of no sex ed because the statute is very clear that sex education within a school, a public school in the state of Idaho, should only happen with the approval of a parent group in the community and the church. And the only thing that can be taught as sex education in the public school is that thing that upholds the family and the values of the church. Is that happening in your district? Not happening in mine. The other thing I found interesting is, did you know on the books that every school district in the state of Idaho is supposed to read Bible verses every morning? Now there's no interpretation, but they're supposed to read it. It's the law. The State Board of Education is supposed to supply to every school district in the state of Idaho a list of Bible verses. When I brought that to somebody's attention, multiple people's attention, I said, oh, that's antiquated, it's old. Oh, Supreme Court ruling. Well, it's still on the books. It's still law in Idaho. So those are the things that I continue to fight for, is over and over, and like somebody else shared up here, we're told consistently, well, that's just how we do it. Well, that's the policy. Well, that's the this. And you finally have to come, and I encourage all of you, when you're told the same thing, to ask for it in black and white. 9 times out of 10, it won't be produced. So I'm looking forward to continuing writing education in our district the way it's supposed to be, the same thing that we fought for during the pandemic. And even that, I spoke to somebody the other day and they said, oh, you guys must have had it easy, you're up in Lakeland. You know, everybody must have backed you. No, they didn't. That was when the worst of the worst started and continues today. And it came from the top level of administration to nearly every administration in the school buildings themselves, who were not carrying out what the board had passed and not carrying out the policies. So, you know, I always look at it as I feel some days that I walked into maybe, I don't know, an area with a bunch of children who have been able to eat candy for years and years and years, and I brought the broccoli.
Thank you,
I'm
Myrna.
Ramona Grissom, and I look forward to your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Michelle Thompson, Lakeland, Zone 3.
Hello. Again, thank you for hosting this and allowing us all to have a voice in this matter. My name is Michelle Thompson, currently the trustee for Zone 3, also the chairman of the board, and I have been the chair for, I think, 3 years. been a resident of Kootenai County for 31 years, lived in Rathdrum for 24. I can absolutely wholeheartedly endorse everything that Trustee Grissom said. I've walked it with her. 3 months onto the board, we were thrust into the pandemic, having no idea what to do, where to go, and how to navigate this. Battling an administration that wanted forced masking, supporting parents who said absolutely not. So we opened our doors at the start of the school year 2020 with no forced masking, because that's what our parents wanted. I do my absolute best to listen to the parents, the taxpayers. As Trustee Grissom said, we inherited a district without curriculum. We've now implemented measures so that we can vet curriculum that we give the teachers to educate the children. And we are seeing positive progress in the testing scores. Not that I'm a fan of standardized testing, but we are seeing that the children are receptive. I mean, children are natural learners. They want to learn, so why not teach them? I am an advocate for parents' rights because I believe the parents have been unrepresented for far too long. These children are their children. They have been their children from day one. Simply because they access public education does not mean they give up that right. That does not mean that someone else has the right to infiltrate their child, to turn them against family values within the family unit or within the church. It's absolutely ridiculous. One of the things that I helped it do, our board had a conversation and parents advocated for crafting policy 3281. This policy ensures that parents will be immediately notified if their child expresses concerns about gender identity. We are going to keep our girls' bathrooms and boys' bathrooms for biologically sexed children that are girls and boys. That's not to say that we haven't offered reasonable, and we will offer reasonable accommodations if a child expresses something different. They can utilize staff bathrooms, so they're safe. I mean, it's not that we're trying to create situations that are unsafe for anyone's child. All children should be safe. Our First Amendment rights are also protected because we are going to refuse to force anyone to identify others by using pronouns. Thank you. And as Trustee Grissom said, when we got on the board, we discovered a whole lot that had been overlooked by the previous trustees. One is our policies. We have policies that are incredibly outdated, that haven't been looked at since 1997. It's a huge undertaking, but it's one of my passions. I believe that if you have it in black and white, then it's a lot easier for people to navigate what needs to be done. One of the things that you all should, I guess, know about me is, I believe it was a year and a half after I became chair, 3 months later, a recall effort was made for me. I endured that. I remained silent because the people that were attacking me were falsifying information, they were lying, there was no truth in what they were saying. But I did not stoop to their level. I would not sit and banter against them because there was nothing to banter about. My reputation preceded me. Like I said, I've been in the community 24 years. I have a lot of roots there. All of my children have experienced the Lakeland School District, graduating, going through junior high. Now we're a middle school, but it used to be a junior high, the high school. My grandchildren attend there. So I invested in the Rathdrum community. I want what's best for our students, which is education. It includes reading, writing, and arithmetic. We need to keep the political nonsense out of the classroom. It has no place. So I do believe in kids, and I trust their parents, so I'd appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
We're going to dive right into the questions, and boy, do we have a lot of questions from everyone here, so thank you. What I'd like to do is start with Michelle and work across, back down to Yasmin. Some of the questions are general questions for everyone to answer. Some of them are specific to incumbents, but I'd also like feedback from those running for the seats to hear their position so that the audience here can understand it. So we're going to dive right in. I want to start with Michelle. You talked a little bit about this in your introduction, but what I'd like to know is your thoughts on your position of males participating in girls' sports and your view on the bathroom issue and why.
Well, as I said, I helped craft Policy 3281 that specifically states biological sex. That is not disputable. If you are biologically a boy or biologically a girl, that is how you were designed. I do not believe that you have the right as a child to infringe on another child's right simply because you think you might identify today as a girl, but you're a boy. So you still go to the boys' bathroom unless it's a major issue, and then you go to the staff bathroom. I do not believe boys should be participating in girls' sports because boys are built differently. They are stronger, they were designed that way by our Creator. That is reality. They do not deserve the right to infiltrate the girls' sports and flip it upside down. Girls have earned the right to play that sport because they are girls. And they should compete amongst those that are like them, all girls. I don't think boys have a place in girls' sports. What was the other part of that?
Basically,
the bathroom
what is your
Okay.
view on males participating in girls' sports
Okay.
and the trans bathroom issue and why?
Okay. I am in the mental health field. Children that are expressing a concern with transgenderism, feel that they are transgender, I believe are being groomed into that position. That's my personal belief.
Amen.
Children aren't capable of having enough education to know what they're doing or why. They're being funneled into that area. I think it's a sin to do that to a child. These children need to be protected. They deserve the right to be children. They deserve the right to play on the playground. They deserve the right not to have the worries of the world on their shoulders because some adult thinks that it's important to start infiltrating them. That's my position.
Thank you, Michelle. For all of the candidates, I'll hold my hand up. 2 minutes each. If you mention an opponent, they get 1 minute to rebut. Okay? So go ahead, Ramona. And if you want me to, just let me know what the...
Something other than education.
The question is, what are your thoughts on males participating in girls' sports and the trans bathroom issue and why?
Well, I think as far as the bathroom is concerned, Virginia gave us the best example of why we should not do that. And I think it was Loudoun County that allowed the boys to use the girls' bathroom and the girl was raped by the boy in the dress. Yeah. It's common sense. Why don't adults allow grown men to go in the restroom, in the girls' restroom, when there's little girls in there? What would be the difference? There isn't one. It just doesn't need to be, and especially at that age, especially when you start getting to the middle school and the high school where hormones are raging, the last thing we need is opposite sex sharing locker rooms and bathrooms. We have boys bathroom and girls bathroom. As far as the sports issue, the same thing. I helped write the Title IX, meaning turn it right side up, and meet all the federal guidelines so that we weren't in violation of the law anymore. I also paid for my own training in Title IX. In fact, I think I paid for most of my own training because there isn't anything out there that's appropriate for trustees. So Title IX is very clear about girls and sports, and that's been precedent for a very long time. Outside of just to me, it's common sense. You know, men have a more upper strength. Men have more strength, period. The girls need to play the girls' sports and the boys need to play the boys' sports, and leave it at that. Once again, I am so frustrated about having these topics that in the education system that have nothing to do with education. Our children can't read and write, but we're worried about whether Bobby can put on lipstick correctly. No. The employer doesn't care if he can put on lipstick. The employer cares if he can do the job, and that comes through education.
Thank you.
Heather, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I got it. Thank you. So I support and voted to enact the recent Coeur d'Alene School District policy that says that students need to use the bathroom associated with their sex at birth or a single-use facility. So we have made some efforts in our middle and high schools to make sure that there are a couple single-use facilities available to our students. The core of the issue to me is everyone needs to be able to come to school. And to come to school, everyone needs to be able to use the bathroom. You're there all day, right? And so we need to make sure that all of our students are comfortable and safe in the bathrooms. And so for me, actually, what I would really like to see a priority is doing some remodeling of at least some of our bathrooms to just provide privacy to everyone. All of our students have some level of uncomfortableness with the bathroom. It's a changing time in your life, and I think all of our students would be more comfortable with more privacy. So that's my position on that issue. As far as sports, so 3 of my children are daughters, and 2 of those children really enjoy sports. One of them is not a sports person, but and so personally, I have some concerns, and I understand other people's concerns in that area. As a school board member, I have to follow the Idaho State Athletic Association. Idaho High School Athletic Association rules for our teams to be eligible to play in state sports. And I think everyone on sports teams wants to play in state sports. So this is an issue that association is working on. There's a state law, and that association is following the state law. It's currently in court, and they're working through this issue at that athletic association level. And as a school board member, I want to see our sports teams be able to compete. So,
Thank you, Heather. Matt?
I could entertain myself and make you repeat the question again, but no, I'm okay, I got it. There's 3 parts to this. The first part is absolutely not. So, children are asexual. There's a reason why children aren't allowed to buy alcohol, buy cigarettes, go vote, join the military, buy a gun. There's a whole host of things that minors are not permitted to do. Yet somehow adults think it's okay to talk to them about things like sex and sexual confusion. And the next part of this is very simply propaganda. So you notice you're trapped in this little buzzword game, trans, pronouns, and all this silliness. By engaging in counter-propaganda, all we do is continue to perpetrate this same conversation which detracts from our education systems. We shouldn't be having these conversations with our children. We shouldn't have to argue about these things. It's very clear. If you're a biological boy and you don't play in girls' sports and you don't go in their restrooms, if there's a child who has issues with this, in our culture, they have behavioral issues. The parents probably have behavioral issues, and it must be addressed at the church, in the medical community, at the home. It is not supposed to be addressed in the school. We shouldn't be having pride conventions. We shouldn't be having Pride Celebration Month in our schools. These are children, not adults. We want to do that as an adult, have at it, but not with our kids. The last part of this is very disturbing. This is continued drumbeat that we need to have this discussion. It needs to stop. We don't need to have separate restrooms. We need to stop having unlicensed personnel
trying to provide medical care for our children.
Thank you, Matt. Jimmy?
Yep. Boys are boys, girls are girls. They go in their own bathroom. It's a distraction. It needs to stop. Accommodations have been made for those folks that think they need to use a single restroom or a single user restroom or whatever. I've got a daughter, there's gonna be no boys in her restroom. Furthermore, people that violate this particular policy should be given some severe punishment and consequences. I mean, it shouldn't just be a, you can't do this. It's gotta be, you can't do this and this is what will happen. It just needs to be held very, very high. And on top of that, I mean, there's gonna be kids that they're just starving for attention. And there's gonna be shenanigans because they think, oh, I can just go in there and nobody can do anything to me. No, you're done. And we're gonna bring your parents in. It's gonna be severe consequences. That should be a particular rule that nobody wants to toe the line on. It should be known in all the hallways and all the schools that that's one of them that that's one meeting you don't want to meet with the principal about. Okay, so there's got to be a little bit of teeth to that. I come from a family athlete. I'd like to consider myself an athlete as well. Out of the integrity to women, boys should be playing boys sports, girls should be playing girls sports. Now when I was growing up, I was a wrestler and there wasn't girls wrestling, and occasionally we'd go up to the Silver Valley and there'd be a girl wrestler on the other team, and you'd look at the guy in your locker room going, oh, I hope you don't get beat by her, right? So, you know, that was a long time ago. I think most places do have girls wrestling right now, but that's the only thing that I can think of where you should even scratch your head about it. Out of the integrity for women, there shouldn't be boy swimmers in the pool with girl swimmers. Number one, it's not fair. And number two, those girls in the past that have broken records, they deserve to have their records stand up in the gymnasiums where they go to school for. So that's how I believe. I really think we all believe that, but I think it's just got to be strictly enforced.
Great, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. Yasmin?
Thank you. Honestly, it's from the devil. This ideology is not who God is and how He has created us. You know, I think the better question is, why are we even entertaining it? You hear about even kids who identify as furries, and then they want a litter box in one of the classrooms. The fact that we as adults are even entertaining this conversation is beyond me. Yep. And just as everyone has said, it is important that we are keeping our children safe. Girls need to feel safe. This is one of the most vulnerable places when we go to the restroom. Some of us, when we start dating, we don't want or get married, our spouse is in the bathroom, and then here in a public school where we are supposed to be protected, and to feel that you don't have that is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm hopeful that we will continue to fight for that and speak truth into it. And, you know, my son identifies as Batman. He thinks he's Batman. And you know what? That's great. I will play with you, and you can be Batman for today, but am I gonna let you jump off the roof? No. So again, it comes back to us adults and what we are allowing, and we have lost sight of our roles in the school and in the community. And the fact that what is right and what is wrong. There's such a distraction, and I do believe it's from the devil, but God is bigger, and so we have to fight back against that. And when it comes to sports, no, it's not right to have men in women's sports and vice versa, for all the reasons said and just common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. This next question really has to do with where authority lies within the school systems. So the question is for all the candidates: should the superintendent be able to have the authority to unilaterally make policy decisions without any input from the board?
Absolutely not. It is not his place to do that. The board is made up of community members who are the voice for the schools and for these kids. I believe that it is, I think, someone else said it earlier, there's been a confusion that's happened of what the roles are. And we are not here to speak for the district, we're here to speak for our parents, for the students, and so he works for us, and so it is important that we are working together to bring forth the best policies, but no, he cannot unilaterally make decisions. I don't believe that is right, and nor is it his role.
Great, thank you. Jimmy?
I think it boils down to the fact that the trustees are elected by their constituents, and the superintendent is hired and fired and held accountable by the board. So it only makes sense that policies and procedures, the trustees have a seat at that table. And we don't have a seat at the table in so many ways here in Kootenai County as it already sits. So I think the default position of a trustee is to be a listener and have an ear to the community. And 5 heads are better than 1. I really believe that. I believe that more positive outcomes that reflect the parents' wishes and the students' wishes. There's nothing wrong with 5, 6 people put their heads together to come up with the best outcome for the students. So, and honestly, if I was a superintendent, I can't imagine thinking any way differently.
Thank you. Matt? Would you like me to read the question?
So this is an interesting dilemma because the Board of Trustees cannot make, individuals can't make decisions on their own. It has to be by a majority vote of the board. But here's the interesting thing. Last year, I think in July, the board ceded and abrogated its responsibility to the superintendent by passing a policy which allows him to write procedures to any policy the board writes. So the board establishes a policy, the superintendent then turns around and writes his procedures guide for that policy, and he doesn't need to go to the board for review. He may go to the board, but he's not required to go to the board for approval on how he's going to interpret and enforce that policy. The next part of this is if you ever watch a board meeting, it is quite clear that the superintendent imagines himself to be in charge. First off, he provides the agendas on Thursday night without any supporting documents and expects the board to jump around and try to answer all the questions for all the decisions they are supposed to make over the weekend. Frankly, he's sandbagging them. So the board is forced to try to trust him. And yet, when you watch his conduct at the meetings, he's openly defiant when the board pushes back. This can't be tolerated. Now the problem is, he's a governmental employee. He's on a contract. So if you're going to address this issue, he needs to be brought to heel. There need to be consequences for his defiance, and the board needs to resume its role of being in charge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Heather?
So as has been mentioned, the role of the board is to make policy. It is not the role of the superintendent to make policy. So the board as a whole approves a policy, and then we hire and can fire a superintendent to implement that policy. So currently in the Coeur d'Alene School District, we have directed our superintendent to make procedures for policies. We make policies that sets the tone, the direction, the goals. He and his administrative staff, including principals and people who are in individual schools, make the procedures. Now, often those procedures come back to us in our consent agenda so that we're aware of what the procedure is. And certainly if anyone has a concern with the procedure, I hope they would bring it to the attention of a board member or a few board members, ideally. As far as our agendas, the agendas are provided on Thursday, but as a board member, I have a regular meeting with our superintendent. All of us do. All 5 trustees meet regularly with our superintendent. So when things come to a board meeting, they're part of an agenda that's been made by our board president in conjunction with the superintendent. But they're not a surprise. We have met regularly with the superintendent, and we know the issues that are being worked on.
Thank you. Ramona?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Absolutely. Should the superintendent be able to have the authority to unilaterally make policy decisions without any input from the board?
No. That should never happen. And unfortunately, throughout the state, I know we're talking about a local race, but you have to understand, this has been practice throughout the state of Idaho, and the expectation directly from the State Department of Education and the State Board of Education, and the people who were voted in there recently are no different. The problem being is that these trustees are trained by bureaucrats, because that's what a superintendent is a bureaucrat. And the bureaucrats teach the trustees how to be good rubber stampers. The problem is that trustees need to take back the power. They were elected by the people to run the school district. They are the governing body. Everything that happens in that district should be set by the board. Now, the superintendent's job is to carry out the policy that the board set. So the rudder to the ship is the board, not the superintendent. The superintendent should never have that power, and the power should remain with the board so that the power remains with the people. I just had this conversation. If the board is not the representation of the people, then the people have absolutely no say what happens at their school district. And if you have trustees who do not listen to the public, they need to go. Even if it was myself. Because it's the only way anything is going to change. They must represent the people, and that does not lie within the hands of the superintendent.
Thank you. Michelle?
The answer's no. When I got on the board, we discovered that the power within our district was absolutely held within the hands of our superintendent. As a board member, it has been a very difficult challenge, almost an uphill battle, to retrieve that power. The board is the governance. The board makes the policies. The superintendent needs to carry them out. So, you know, we are a voice of 5 people, and we have 1 employee. That is the superintendent. She needs to do, or he needs to do their job in carrying out the policies that the board makes. The superintendent should never be making policies. That is not the superintendent's job at all.
Great, thank you. Okay, this next question has to do with spending and levies. I think the public in general has seen levies continue to come up on what it seems to be every election. And people don't understand why we're spending so much more money and the school districts wanting so much more money and not necessarily seeing better results with the children. And so this question is, what areas do you think expenses can be reined in so these levies don't seem to go on in perpetuity and continue to grow?
Up in our district, we've had a challenge with budget and financials and transparency, which, when things aren't transparent, it is very challenging to figure out where the floodgates are and the money's just leaking out the district. I do believe of all the people within the district, if anyone's going to be making a decent wage, it should be our teachers. They're the ones tasked with educating our children. I don't think we pay teachers adequately. That being said, I also believe we have way too much administration in each building that's utilizing a significant portion of our budget, which is wages. So for me, I would like to see less administration. Let's put the money where our mouth is, and that's the teachers. You give them the curriculum, they educate our children, we get great students from that result.
Thank you. Ramona?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Michelle said. So the state funds a teacher and a desk, and they fund a portion of what's needed to run the district. They fund 85% of the prior year's transportation budget, so that leaves the 15% up to us. And they do not fund buildings, they do not fund maintenance, they don't fund curriculum. There's a lot of things that you would think that the state funds, and they don't fund it. And our governor has been really good at dishing out money for administration raises by the millions, and nothing for the teachers. He did it this year, not to the tune which he wrote in the paper. That wasn't quite true, the amount of money. And I think he only did that because, you know, we're facing an election year and they had some other money. But our teachers should not be able to qualify for food stamps. They shouldn't come out of school with a $50,000 debt and take a $40,000 a year job, which was in our district, and they stayed at $40,000 a year for 6 years. To put one family member, a child, on the insurance was $600 a month. We fund a lot of other things, and we don't fund the most important thing, which is the teacher. We don't give them curriculum, so we give them no tools. We pay them almost the least amount of money than anybody else in the district, and yet we wonder why our children aren't learning, and then we demand that they find all this data, which does absolutely nothing. Yes, data, if we look at cohort data, can tell us something, but most of the time when we look at data, we're looking at what already happened. You can't fix the past. So we do have a lot of funding challenges, but I think we need to fund according to what the statute says, and it doesn't include sports or anything to do with sports. We need books and kids that can read and write.
Thank you, Ramona. Okay, Heather?
So, as has been mentioned, the state funds our schools at a minimal level, and then they allow our local community to decide what is important to us. And the local supplemental levy can be frustrating. It expires every 2 years, so it literally is here every 2 years because the previous one has expired. So that can be frustrating. It's frustrating for our taxpayers, it's frustrating for school board members, it's frustrating for people who work in the district. But the advantage to this system is that our local community gets to have their voice heard in our budget. They get to decide every 2 years, are these programs still important to us? Do we still want to fund these programs? So it's a blessing and a curse. And I think it energizes our community to really think about what do we want to see from schools, what's important to us. And so from that standpoint, I appreciate the process. And in terms of teacher pay, we were thrilled this year in the Coeur d'Alene School District to be able to give a generous raise to all of our teachers. And that was possible because of some new money from the state towards teacher salaries, and also because of our local levy. So between those two, we were able to give every teacher in our district a $6,000 raise. So that raises our starting salary to 47 something, which is still not getting rich, but an improvement over our previous 41. So I'm super grateful that the state money and our local community chose to let us be able to do that.
Thank you. And just to remind, the question is geared towards what areas do you think that the school district can rein in expenses so that these levies will not continue growing and this perpetual process here of more money and more money?
Are you talking about reining in the school or me? So, I'm just kidding. So, yeah, our school budget here is a Frankenstein. A lot of different sources, but the thing is that what's consistent across all the different types of funding is the requirement for personnel to spend time trying to figure out how to spend that money. So there's a opportunity cost for each of these different types of funds that come in. The unfortunate reality is we have to have the levies. What's really important, however, is what we called in the military was the tooth-to-tail ratio. The tooth is the teachers, but the support system behind it is monstrously large here. We need to have cuts, and you can only have those cuts if you really force the issues. As an example, we got funding from a separate stream called ESSER funds, and yet effort was dedicated to expanding the Midtown Meeting Center. That was not a priority of work, but we were going to spend that money, and we're going to spend time on it. That's opportunity cost. So the only way this changes is if the board gets together and tells the superintendent and the administration that we're going to take a cut across the board, down this line, and you figure out where you're going to cut. If you have to cut 10% of your staff or 10% of your operating funds, do it. But that's the only way you can cut back on the use of levy funds. You have to have better management.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, Jimmy.
Great question. Senator Rich is my favorite senator in the United States, but I feel like he got it wrong back in 2009 when we stripped $240 million out of the state's coffers that are dedicated to local schools. So it's put a radical amount of pressure on funding schools since that happened. It was a great idea in the spirit of property tax relief, but it's come back to haunt us. So I feel for the taxpayer because they feel like they're just getting drilled every single 2 years. And as somebody that supports levy, I get it. I totally get it. But we talk about supporting teachers. If we got rid of those dollars, classroom sizes would increase approximately 5 pupils per classroom, okay? You could shut down the entire administration and it would, I mean, every single last person, and it would amount to less than 25% of that levy, okay? That's just the reality of it. I've actually had to hire people over the last couple of years, and if you're a business owner or you're in the world of hiring people, they're not going to work for peanuts. Sorry, it's just not the case. So right now, I don't know that reining it in, I mean, I'd look at, this is what I do in my business world. I'd look at all the programs that are out there. I'd look at them to make sure that they're meeting the needs of industry and businesses here so that we don't have to keep shipping kids, all of our product out across state lines to go to work. And those programs that are supporting kids going on to serve or going into the trades or going on to another institution, the ones that are doing a great job and turning out productive kids, those ones stay, okay? But I actually looked at it, I'm like, I'm from North Idaho. So I just, let me look at my daughter's classes. Look at my son's classes. They're identical to the classes that I took when I grew up. I kid you not. 7th grade, she's taken the exact, except she's in choir. I can't carry a note. But it's relatively unchanged, okay? So unfortunately, I think that you just gotta go and pick the programs that are supporting the mission of achievement, and that's where you start. But I honestly think at the end of the day, it's a drop in the hat. It really is. And extracurriculars, they teach grit, they teach resilience, they teach failure, they teach overcoming odds and teamsmanship. So I'm really non-negotiable when it comes to those extracurriculars. They saved me as a kid.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yasmin?
Well, I honestly believe there's just mismanagement of funds. Our books, it's public record. Go pull it up. My background is in finance and budgeting and auditing. And just the little bit of work I've done, you could see misallocation of funds. And I think that when it comes to the levies, well, let me go back actually. I think we are a top-heavy organization when it comes to the schools. So when our superintendent is making more than a civil servant, I think that's a problem, especially here in Coeur d'Alene. I also think that levy money ends up, this is money that is from taxpayers. And taxpayers want to believe that the money that they are giving, especially to schools, are actually going for the things that they want to see change. What is happening is the complete opposite. I lost my train of thought as I was saying that. Forgive me as I got nervous speaking.
It's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, say that again, please.
Yeah, the question is, what areas in spending do you think you could rein in a little bit?
Yeah.
So we can address some of these levies that just keep going on in perpetuity and seem to get larger.
Thank you. Yes, so where I was trying to go with that, and forgive me, I feel that when we are telling the community, we need this money, please give to it, we're gonna lose X, Y, and Z, but then we as the community give to that, and then that still happens. And we talked about it, the transportation, that being cut. Schools are still being shut down, and then this extra money that was given, I think it was $380,000 for the Midtown building. That money, instead of being put to an administrative building, there are still so many schools that need help. There's no air conditioning, the walls are cracking. There's so many things that we could do to support the schools, but instead, I believe that our mindset isn't for the betterment of the students or our schools. I think it's what's gonna, it's what the superintendent believes is best. And again, it's restructuring the school board into stepping up into what their role is and speaking that out to the public so the public is aware of what our role is.
Thank you. And I have a follow-up question to that, because when we had this big levy debate earlier, previous elections here just recently, one of the things that I found to be a little bit difficult is to be able to understand the books of the schools. As if you get elected, would you make it so that the general public could read the books of the school much easier so they can figure out where the money is actually going? And I'd just like to give 1 minute to each candidate, starting with Yasmin.
Yes, absolutely. I keep hearing from parents that they don't even know where to go. The school does make it accessible. The district, I should say, makes it accessible. But, you know, something for someone like me who's a visual learner is doing a video like a Loom where I can directly show you where to go, what to click, and if there is an area of concern, showing you where to find that. When it comes to money and finances, money doesn't lie. Numbers don't lie. So it's really just understanding it, and it is quite simple to do, honestly. And I believe as trustees, that's one of the things that we should make ourselves available in answering always what we are spending money on and why. And if something is brought to light, let's say there is a mistake made. My biggest frustration has been this feeling that we can't apologize or say we made a mistake. It's okay to say we made a mistake, but let's correct that mistake.
Thank you. Jimmy, 1 minute.
Well, as far as the complexity of the financials on the school board site or the district site, yeah, it shouldn't take quantum physics. It shouldn't take a degree in calculus to figure it out. However, you can thank your lovely folks at the state that require that these financials be posted in the manner that they are. I mean, you get lost in that thing. So the nice thing, I mean, the improvement that I've seen in the new finance director is actually using PowerPoint and put it on there, and it's pretty easy to read through. It's an improvement. It's not quite there. But if you've got questions, you know, I've found that Mike Nelson at the district office is pretty responsive to questions that I've had about the numbers, and it's pretty easy to get it on his calendar to go through it. But I agree, you're not going to make everybody happy with regards to how those financials and disclosures are printed, because it's just a gorilla to get your arms around. It's a bear. So I think improvement can be made there, simplifying as possible, but it's never going to replace what's required by the state until they make those changes.
Thank you. Matt?
So it's great if the books are made available.
Historic women organization.
Sorry. It's great if the books are made available. The problem is they are utterly complex. And to anyone who's not a financial guru, which I am not, you really have to lean on somebody who knows what they're doing. Now, the issue that I see when I look at these documents and then take them to people who are experts is that we can't account for what those line items really mean. So when you look at them, they're rather generic. It might say furniture. You have no idea if it's a massage chair or a desk chair. So it's not enough that the books be made available. You have to know exactly what is being spent and what it's being spent on. And that requires a much more thorough audit that we can possibly get by seeing those books online. The other issues that we see along the same lines, take a look at the bids on some of these projects. When you see discrepancies of 100% on bids, there's something wrong with the bid. There was a bid for $385,000 and the other bids were $600,000 and $700,000. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there's something wrong between these bids. So, books need to be open, yes, but we also need to have a much more thorough understanding of what each of those line items really means.
Thank you, and that's what I'm really getting towards, is that the average person, I think, has a very difficult time looking at these books and understanding where the heck does the money go. So, go ahead.
I agree with that, and I think that's something that we are working to improve in the district office and need to continue to work to improve. Our finance director has started she's calling it a budget book. It's modeled after West Ada. Their finance director has a similar thing. The school district finances are split up into a bunch of different accounts, and these accounts are specified to us by the state. And so, just as a very first step, she went through this last year and put a narrative on each account, telling you what by law we're allowed to use that money for and where it comes from. And she's going to continue to add to it. And I support her in that. I would really love to see people be able to understand better what they're looking at when they look at our books. Another thing we're starting in a month or two is a program called Smarter School Spending. This is a 2-year program that looks at our budget and tries to evaluate, are we spending money on what we want to be spending money on? So our goal is to improve student achievement. Is the way we're spending money going to lead to that? So I'm excited for that program to get going as well.
Great, thank you, Heather. Ramona?
Repeat the question.
Yeah. Would you figure out a way to make the books easier to read for the general public?
Right. So the biggest problem I see is that it's your money. It's not the school district's money. Because you know what? The trustees can't even understand what it is. And I believe that's purposed. We shouldn't have to have some fancy program to tell you. It should be transactional data down to the detail so that everybody can see. The general public should not have to beg the school district or the trustee to show them their money and to show them their budget. We have been working on that, not only to simplify so anybody can pick it up and understand it, but also for more transparency. We have had some change of administration that I'm hoping will make that better. And regardless of what the state wants to see it one way, the feds want to see it another way, but the bottom line is it's our money. And we deserve to see it the way we want to see it. We want to know where the money is spent. For a long time, and one of the reasons I pushed for curriculum is I kept seeing all of these supplies, and I'm thinking, for what? Well, it was because we didn't have any curriculum. So they were buying whatever. But the bottom line is it's all of our money, and we shouldn't have to beg. They should just show us the money.
Thank you, Ramona. And Michelle, 1 minute.
Yeah, since I became a trustee, that was one thing that I've been advocating, pushing for, is being able to see the financials and read them and understand them. I do have a background in accounting, so I am familiar with books. And there's nothing more frustrating when the numbers do not add up and they don't match. We finally have a CFO that is working very hard in making sure that the numbers are crystal clear and that everyone can understand them. I get what the gentleman down there said about the state form, but that's exactly all it is a state form. That is not something that the public has to have an education on. That state form needs to match exactly what we give to people so that there is clear transparency with what the money is, where it's going, and why it's going in that direction. And I will just keep pushing for that because you shouldn't have to beg to understand what's going on.
Great, thank you, Michelle. And just as a show of hands here, because understanding the numbers is so difficult, and because of what happened, I believe it was up in the Bonner School District, if the public demanded and wanted a forensic audit, and you're elected or re-elected, just a show of hands, would you push for a forensic audit of the books? Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, on to the next question. Do you support school choice and why? And we'll start with Michelle. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, I do support school choice. As a mom raising children, my children were in private school. I homeschooled for many years and we ventured into the public school. Like I said, 2 of my grandchildren are in the public school. I also have 1 grandchild in private school, and I have 3 grandchildren being homeschooled. I believe a family has the right to decide what is in the best interest of their child for their child's education. I think if the public school can step up their academic game, there may be people that come back to it. But we have failed so many students, and parents want what's best for their kids. So I don't have a problem if a parent wants to pursue homeschooling or pursue private school. But I want to make the public school a better place. I do support choice in education.
Great, thank you. Ramona?
Yes, I do support school choice. I also homeschooled all 4 of our children. Our 2 oldest did graduate from a public school, but the parents, for many, many, many years of me homeschooling our children, I still paid the school tax. I could have used that money to even better educate my children, but I was still paying the tax and paying for private education, homeschooling education, and once again, it's the people's money. I should not, you should not have to pay for something that you do not agree with. You should not be forced to fund something that you do not agree with. So I'm all for school choice. I think parents should be able to take their money to whatever education institution they feel fits their need.
Great, thank you. Do you support school choice and why? Heather?
So I believe that parents have the right and the responsibility to make sure that their child is educated. Parents know their individual kid. One of the great things about Idaho is we have a lot of choice. We have public school systems, and now we are allowed to move between public school systems. If you feel another system is a better fit for your child, you can move to that school system. We also have a robust network of charter schools. We're really lucky here in Kootenai County with some of our charter schools. And we also have options like homeschooling, private schooling. I think it's wonderful to have all these choices. My job as a member of the Public School District Board is to make sure that our public school district is the best it can be, to make sure it's serving our kids as well as it can, and that most of our community feels like their kids are getting what they need from it. So that's my focus and my job as a school trustee.
Thank you. Matt?
Well, I'll start with competition is good, very good. School choice is really important. But the thing is that there are a lot of taxpayers that have decided not to send their children to school and are homeschooling, but they don't get a kickback, they don't get vouchers, they pay for everything out of their own pocket and they pay taxes. Not right. So we have a not-for-profit system which seems to be focused on spending every last penny they have and not trying to save any money for the years in the future. It's wrong. So again, I'll go back to, yes, I believe in school choice, and I believe that competition
is the best model that we have to force these school systems to perform better.
Okay, Jimmy?
Yeah. I'm as big a fan of the capitalism as anybody in here, and I'm all about competition. I think it brings out the best of us. It brings out the best in our country. I'm all for school choice. The Idaho State Constitution clearly states that publicly funded school system needs to be funded. We've already agreed that it could be tight, so long as that the emergence of more school choice and voucher programs does not gut the Coeur d'Alene School District. I'm a proponent for it. If we can do that, great. And also, on top of it, while we're talking about money, I was raised by my grandmother, my single grandmother, okay? We could have gotten free school lunches. We didn't do that, but we could have. So I understand that it's tight, and an extra few dollars here and there on the taxpayer, especially the people that are most vulnerable, it's a lot. We're asking for a lot when we're asking for those tax dollars. I think that there needs to be additional protections in place. I think the circuit breaker as it sits right now is archaic, and it's probably not in line with 2023 income and expenses. So I would be in favor of moving that around a little bit just to make sure that we're protecting those folks that are most vulnerable, our seniors that are on fixed income. So yes, school choice, big fan of it. I've had a kid, my daughter was in private Christian school, loved it. But my job as a trustee in the next 4 years is to deliver student achievement levels that you all will feel like your taxpayers are spent wisely. And if I don't, I failed, kick me out. But on that merit, I feel like the taxpayer in Kootenai County will feel like they got what they deserved.
Thank you, Jimmy. Yasmin?
Yeah, school choice is key. I think that it is the parents' right on where they feel is the best place for their children to be educated. I also believe that funding that comes to our students should be given to parents and where they feel it's best used. So if for them it's to homeschool, then they should do with that as they see fit. And lastly, I just want to speak into this growth that we have had here in Coeur d'Alene. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we've had such large growth, and yet the numbers attending public schools have declined. That speaks on what is happening in our public schools. That is a huge reason why I think most of us are hopefully running to do better and hopefully bring these public school systems back to the level that they're supposed to be. And that way parents can feel comfortable sending their kids to school. I am a proud mom at Hayden Meadows. I've been very blessed. I think my husband would say the same. We've had great administration, staff, teachers who have listened to us when we've had concerns. I know that is not the case across the district. And so 100% school choice matters. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Yasmin. The next question is really geared towards what we're starting to see in the headlines in other parts of the country. We're starting to witness mask mandates again. So it seems like version 2.0 is now upon us. And so I would like to get your thoughts on, would you support a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate, and why? We'll start with Yasmin. 2 minutes.
Absolutely not. No mask mandates, no vaccine mandates, and definitely not for our kids. For those who are not aware, I was born in Iran during the revolution between Iran and Iraq, and my family and I fled. We came during a time where very quickly those freedoms were stripped from our family. And when COVID happened, and my mom, and she's struggling with dementia, but one of the things that she said to me right when COVID happened was, it's happening here. Don't let it happen to the kids. This is a part of that, And so it is important that we are standing up for our rights and to be very aware that our freedoms can be stripped from us, and to think that they can't, you know, it's scary. It's scary having conversations with people who don't think that it's an issue, because it is. Just look across the US and look across the world. And it starts with us standing up, not only for ourselves, but for our children. So no, I am not for masks or vaccines, and I would fight against that.
Thank you. Jimmy?
I really don't think I need 2 minutes. No and no. I think everybody that was, you know, in hindsight, I think everybody, even the biggest mask and vaccine fans on the planet, would take a mulligan if they had that one to do over. So I don't anticipate that's gonna, you know, we might build our own wall in Idaho.
Now, was there any incumbent that was faced with the mask mandate before, and can you share which way you voted on that?
I don't think any of us are incumbents.
I'll share.
Just yes or no?
No.
Okay. No? No for Michelle? No for Michelle. Okay, all right. Thank you. Matt, you have 2 minutes.
So interesting thing about this issue. First, most folks aren't aware there's no such thing as a vaccine mandate that's federally mandated. It's the CDC that makes recommendations, and then the state, I believe here, the State Board of Health and the State Board of Education decide what vaccines they recommend your children get, and then the schools enforce it. So the answer is no, there shouldn't be vaccine mandates per se for COVID. Now, some of the other diseases that are out there, that's a separate discussion. If you ever see the horrors of measles or polio, you've got to take a big deep breath and recognize which things are important and which things are time tested and proven. Now, as far as masks go, absolutely not. The problem with masks is it's a symbol of terror. It's intended to force your compliance. Now, it's not enough to say, I'm not going to mandate the mask. The mandate has to be, you shall not wear a mask in school. If there's an adult or a child that must wear a mask because they have a medical problem, then they need to stay home. We do not want them to get sick and die. We know the masks don't work, and therefore it has to be a mask prohibition, not a discussion about whether or not we're going to mandate masks.
Thank you. Heather?
I also don't need 2 minutes. I would not support a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. I was appointed to the board after those decisions were made, and even at the time, I felt like our schools were one of the few places in our county where masks were actually mandated. And so what were we really even gaining? Like, it was, I would not have voted for it at the time either, so, and I will not in the future.
Great, thank you. Ramona?
Yes, I was a very strong vocal advocate for keeping schools open and no masks. And I still stand by that today. And no vaccine mandate. I don't believe in mandating anything on anybody. But part of the issues that we have today in society, schools, wherever you look, is everybody thinks they're entitled to a trophy. No, there's something called personal responsibility. And we have to demand personal responsibility from children and adults. So I don't believe in mandating any of those things, and I never did, and I never will.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yes, we went through the whole COVID dealio. We were the only school in North Idaho to reopen our doors with no masks at the fall of 2020. That speaks to the character of our board. We listened to our parents who did not want their children in masks. I personally, no mask. If you want to assert your desire to wear a mask, then pitter patter, have at her. But I don't have the right to tell you you have to wear a mask because I'm not going to feel safe if you're not in a mask. I'm not in a mask. I mean, it's just silly. So no, I would never tell someone else, you have to do this, which is wear a mask, or you have to vaccinate. That is a personal choice, and everyone is entitled to have that choice to be made for themselves.
This question just came in, and I thought it would be interesting just for the audience, just a show of hands from the candidate. Do you think that vaccines should be administered on school property? If you believe that they should be, raise your hand. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, the next question has to do with CRT, or social emotional learning. The question is, do you support it, CRT, or social emotional learning, in any of its forms? Because what we're seeing here is that they say we're not doing CRT anymore, but it seems like the policy is still in place with just a new title, new headline here. So I'll start with Michelle. You have 2 minutes to talk about do you support it and why?
No, I do not support CRT. I believe its premise is reverse discrimination, and I'm not for that. I also believe it's a theory that's never been proven, and it's quite subjective. So I don't know how you can teach children factual information based on subjectivity. I don't believe it has any place within our curriculum. In fact, we were vetting a curriculum. It was a literature reading curriculum that the stories were incredibly political, just laden with CRT. So it's like, absolutely not. We're not going to go there, because teachers should not be teaching children about politics, their political stance, what they need to believe and not believe. That's within the family unit. That's not a school's place. And we shouldn't be teaching from curriculum that's going to indoctrinate our kids. And CRT was the only thing, right?
Social emotional learning.
Right. That's kind of an interesting thing. We had a curriculum that was in our school that had not been approved by our school board that was very much social emotional learning. We voted to not return that to the classroom. I believe we do need to help kids learn to be kind and treat each other with respect. But when you cross over into the whole social emotional learning, you're trying to teach a child your values, not what's being taught by their families. And we need to respect that.
Thank you. Ramona?
Well, I do not support CRT or social emotional learning. I wrote the resolution for the Lakeland Joint School District, which was unanimously accepted against CRT, any of its tenets, any racial blah, blah, blah. You can read it. It's on the website. It's resolution 10/17/2021, I believe. Before, I think it was even law in Idaho. As far as SEL, and with Michelle, I did bring that to the attention of administration and attempted to have it removed immediately, which turned into me being turned into the State Department of Education for dereliction of duties, a personal letter written from the author to the school district and the state berating myself. So no, I fought the fight. I will continue to fight the fight. Once again, we're there to teach children to read, write, and arithmetic, be a good human, do unto others as you should have them do unto you, and move on. I would never support that in any form.
Thank you. Heather?
So I do not support any teaching in our school that makes someone feel bad about a group they belong to, or makes them feel like they need to take responsibility for the actions of others, particularly in the past. So I don't support CRT in that way. To me, social emotional learning is different from CRT. Now, we need to be careful about the kinds of social emotional learning we do. We're certainly not trying to indoctrinate our kids with any sort of outside agenda. The program that we have in the Coeur d'Alene School District, which I voted to approve, is called Sources of Strength. And I'm going to pull out my notes to make sure I don't miss any. This program helps our students individually think through and talk with their parents. My children come home and talk to us about these things. What are their sources of strength? What do they have to look to and lean on and go for help to when they are struggling with anxiety or depression or crisis? And the 8 areas are family support, positive friends, generosity, spirituality, physical health, mental health, mentors, and healthy activities. And so we talk through these areas, but of course the teachers are, actually it's led by counselors, there's no therapy happening, and they don't get to tell their kids what their sources are. My children may look at family support and see their parents and their siblings. We don't live particularly close to my parents, so they probably aren't going to say that my parents are a huge support for them. Other kids are going to be close to both set of grandparents, so they're going to say my parents and all 4 of my grandparents. Other kids are going to say my sibling doesn't live in the home with me anymore, like they're 12 years older than me, so they're not a super close support. But for my kids, their siblings are a support. So my point is, it's individual. Each child looks at their individual life. No one's telling them what their sources are. They're figuring out and thinking through what their sources are and talking to their parents. And so I voted to support that program, and I think our kids need some support in that area. You cannot learn to read or write or do math if you cannot focus on it. And so our children need help overcoming and learning to calm their emotions so that they can focus on those things.
Thank you. Next, Matt.
So CRT was, I guess, the original attempt at an overall project. It's one component of a bigger problem. It's great that the community is aware and paying attention to CRT, but what really troubles me and what really got me engaged in trying to run for school board is what I saw as social activism training. Our children, their future is being hijacked by adults who wish to turn them into social justice warriors and social activists. And let me tell you, the evidence is a mass walkout by children of a high school. Don't tell me that parents didn't get that running. Now, as far as some of these other programs go, social emotional learning, we attempted not to inject that into the new curriculum. However, the school district executed a purchase order the next morning after the vote, not even knowing which way the vote would go, which tells me that paperwork was done and probably unfunded commitments were made over the phone, at least, or maybe by email, before the vote had even occurred. The last part of this, the sources of strength. It is a form of group therapy. It is nothing else. The teachers who are not trained therapists are given classes, and they're expected to go conduct these group therapy sessions with children, and they're following something called the Wheel of Dharma. So go ahead and take a look at the Wheel of Dharma and compare it to the circle on the sources of strength and tell me if there's any difference. So these things need to come to an end. We need to, as one of the other trustees pointed out, we need to return to the focus of reading, writing, and arithmetic and stop trying to create behavior management programs for our children in the school system.
Okay, Jim.
Great question. CRT, no way, no how. I believe in teaching about Martin Luther King. I believe in teaching about the Civil Rights Movement. I believe in teaching about Rosa Parks, and those are things that my daughters come home and we've had discussions about. We take an active role in our kids' education. One thing about my daughter too, she is a warrior. She sniffs this stuff out, okay? She just truly is. She's remarkable. And I ask her, she knows what controversial stuff to look to. I ask her, now I'm running for school board, I ask her 5 times a week, but it used to be 1 or 2 times a week. And I'm thankful that stuff is just not, It's just not been the case with her. I know that's not the case for every kid in the school district. I want it to be that way, okay? I don't want people to, we love Hayden Meadows. Hayden Meadows is a huge blessing to us. I don't want people to say, oh, you're in Hayden Meadows, you got it good. I want it every school and every parent to feel that way, okay? Social emotional learning, to the degree that when I was a kid we had civics classes, that's what I want to see. Okay, that's what I want to see. Be kind, courteous, pull a chair out for open the door for an old lady. You know, maybe I'm a little old-fashioned. You know, let women speak first. Things like that. I think they do deserve to be taught and expressed. Okay. Newsflash: sources of strength. My daughter's involved in it. Okay, she's a warrior. She is out there evangelizing in her schools through her actions, through her words, through her heart. And this is what she did this year. Her projects in sources of strength. Because I looked at it, I'm like, she wants to be involved in it. She's a pretty smart little cookie, but I'm going to monitor it. She did 2 food drives, and then they went around to all the places in the school where there's graffiti, and they made signs so that people wouldn't be doing graffiti in those areas. I mean, those are things that we kind of teach our kids, like to solve problems and seek solutions. So there's nothing sinister about it. But I am super active with my kids, and that's, you know, and so we listen to them and we watch for it, we root it out. So I'm not into, you know, we don't need hugging classes, right? We don't need any of that junk. But I think that civic and citizenship, that probably, those kids today probably could use some of that.
Thank you. Yasmin?
Well, CRT, critical race theory, I mean, it's a lens to honestly indoctrinate. So absolutely not, does not belong in our schools. I think the scary thing is the curriculum and the agendas that are trying to make their way in, that people don't see it as being something that is CRT when it is. And honestly, when it comes to kids and when it comes to schools, of course children have social emotional well-being, and that matters, and some of them may come to school hungry, or some of them may come to school because, you know, their parents were fighting, and I understand all of that. But the point of school is for education. And, you know, you may be involved with your kids' activities and you're monitoring them, but there are parents and guardians who are not. It's those kids that we need to be watching after. And that's why I don't believe these programs belong in the schools. I believe that as good as it could be, there's still room for it to be mishandled and misdirected, and indoctrination can creep its way in. And it already has in a lot of areas. And I just heard from a parent the other day on social media who was extremely upset because she wanted her child to not go through this SEL program in her elementary school. She brought it up to, I believe it was the teacher and the principal said, if you don't want her in it, you have to come pick her up every day. Wow. Are you kidding me? But that was the answer she got. And so she went into social media saying, what's my recourse? But see, that's my point in this, is maybe we are blessed at Hayden Meadows because we have a maybe competent principal or administration. I don't know that school, I don't know that principal, but if that parent is receiving that information, that is wrong. And that parent should have every opportunity to say, I don't want my kid in there. In fact, that's why opting in is what needs to happen, not opting out.
We've been talking about where your positions are on policy, and we can agree generally that the board sets the policy, okay? And so you have the board, you have the administration, you have the teachers, and then of course you have the students, right? So this question is for the people who have not held office yet. What would you do to ensure that policy is being executed and carried out at the student level? And for those board members who are existing incumbents, what have you done? to make sure that board policy is being executed and carried out at the student level? I'll give each of you 1 minute, and we'll start with Yasmin.
Would you mind asking that again? That was a long question.
What would you do to ensure that board policy is being executed and carried out all the way down to the student level? And I'll give you an example. The libs of TikTok, they run these and they find these videos of these teachers that are saying, I teach these kids things that go against the board policy and I don't care, I'm going to do it. So how would you as a board member ensure that policy is being executed and carried out in the school district at the student level?
Well, just like anything, I believe, we have to lead by example. And so leading by example, making sure that our superintendent is willing and able to also implement those policies to the staff. I think that, what I have noticed is there's constant confusion in policies, even with our dress codes, right? And so I think there's a lot of areas in the policies at the school level right now that I believe children think that they have a say in how things are done. And it really starts by communicating, and over-communicating. So you hear from the community often that they're not aware of how a policy came into place or it even exists. And so it starts with us as trustees being very vocal with constituents, with the community, and with teachers and staff.
Okay, thank you. Jimmy, you are an incumbent, you are already on the board. So what have you done to ensure that board policy is being executed down to the student level in the classrooms?
Great question. So raising hands in here, have you looked at the recent achievement, preparedness, college preparedness, all the numbers that track where our kids are? Raising hands. Okay, well, if you haven't, you gotta take a look at it. I'm a business person. One of the reasons why I'm running is because it's easy. In the next 2 years, in the next year, we need to see if those numbers are going up or down. I mean, that's how you track progress. And we hold people accountable. They've got 5% goals of achieving higher math and fluency achievement. Okay, let's look at the numbers. The numbers are gonna speak, like you said, numbers don't lie, okay? So that's number one, we gotta keep them accountable. Number two, we gotta keep our kids safe, okay? I don't wanna give off too much here, but I'd be making visits to all of our schools and be looking for weaknesses in keeping the bad guys out there. I think that, it's great that we've improved our vestibules and keeping bad guys out there, but they're not going through the front door, okay? So number two is I'd be basically secretly shopping those schools in that regard. And number three, we just gotta find better ways to engage with parents. We need to incent them to engage with the schools, because not only do we find that student achievement rises when we've got a clear and measurable path and a strategy in place, but when parents are engaged, kids win. And those are my 3 areas of focus, and I've done it.
I'm sorry to cut you off. We're going
You
to
didn't, I'm sorry.
run a couple minutes over here. So I appreciate the audience's patience on this. 1 minute for each candidate. Matt, go ahead, please.
This actually isn't that hard. We've got to enforce through accountability. Most of the teachers are really in this for the right reasons. Now, every now and then there's the bad apple, to use a bad analogy. But most of the teachers are in this for the right reasons. Some don't feel like they are supported in enforcing certain rules. Others think that they're not going to be punished for not enforcing certain rules. But accountability starts at the top. You hold the superintendent accountable. You're a board member, or I hope to be a board member. You hold the superintendent accountable for enforcement of the policies. You have him hold his subordinates accountable for their actions. So, as an example, when the children walked out of the high school, was anyone censored? Was anyone put on notice that their job was at risk? I don't know. Was the superintendent warned that his job was at risk? I don't know. But if I don't know, that means the community doesn't know, and neither do the teachers. So where's the enforcement? It begins at the top, you enforce the rules at the top, and there are consequences for them not enforcing it.
Thank you. Heather, you have 1 minute.
I agree with Yasmin. I am an incumbent, and the primary method that I think to focus on is communication. When a board member cares about something, the superintendent cares about it. If I bring it up in my meeting with him, it's on his radar. He cares. He knows. I'm going to bring it up again next time, right? So communicating well expectations and our policies to everyone, the superintendent and then administration and teachers. I also really love to talk to teachers and parents in our community about how they feel like the schooling is going. And sometimes they have concerns, and then you address those concerns. I really want to make a plug for parent involvement. When parents are involved in their kids' learning, when parents know how to be involved and they feel welcome in their kids' learning, everything is better. And this is one of those things that is better, when our parents are involved. So that's important to me as a board member.
Thank you. Ramona, 1 minute, please.
Accountability, definitely. We hold the teachers, the superintendent, everybody accountable. Most policies that we implement come with feedback forms, and we ask for the forms. We want to know exactly, and listening to the community. If the parents feel like they can trust you, they'll be in touch with you. And so will the students. And we take feedback from everybody, and we read everything that everybody says. So it's all about communication and accountability.
Thank you. Michelle?
Well, as an incumbent, we created the policy committee. Well, actually, we didn't create it. It was formed on us. But anyway, the policy committee reviews everything. We send it all out to parents. Parents provide feedback. It comes back to us. Then the board is given the policy and all the information to make sure that they are making the right decisions for the parents, the community, and the district. And then through the accountability and communication, the superintendent carries that all the way down. If parents have input from the get-go, it's a lot easier for those students to follow the policies because everybody's aware out the gate what's expected.
Just show of hands for the audience. For those of you who believe that the parent should have an opt-in for any kind of school, raise your hand.
We already did that.
You already did that? Well, you opt-in versus opt-out for different school programs. So do you believe in opt-in for the parents?
For the controversial ones, all day.
For some things, sure.
I mean, if you can't opt out of math, you know?
That lets you know, right?
Well, for the controversial,
Yeah.
CRTs of emotional learning, all that stuff. Yeah, sure, please.
Well, I think what he's trying to state is when you require permission from parents, it is always opt-in. You don't have the right to opt out of it.
Yeah.
You need to opt into it if you really want your child to participate in whatever it is that the school district is offering.
I'd like to add something to that.
I'll give you 20 seconds.
So we have to be careful because there's the curriculum and there's the specials. And the way SOS got slipped in was, it was a claim that it wouldn't affect the curriculum, it affected the specials. So there has to be consistency in the terminology so we know what we're opting out of or opting into.
Yes.
That we have a curriculum, and if there's something on the outside, we know what that is, it's identified separately.
20 seconds. But by statute, anything that enters the room and is used to instruct the child is curriculum. That is the definition in statute. There is no such thing as a specials. It's all curriculum.
They just bring it like that. Thank you for the
Thank you. Thank you to the audience for the fantastic questions. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the candidates for answering them.
I want to thank everyone for coming again. I want to thank all the candidates. I have to say this is probably one of the better town halls that I have ever attended. The information was clear. You guys have clearly done your homework, or the incumbents have clearly learned what the job's about. And I appreciate you coming this morning. What I want all of you to also know is that I want to thank Terry Seymour for spearheading this and putting it together. But I want you to know that Terry actually reached out to all the candidates in Lakeland, Coeur d'Alene, and Post Falls. So you'll notice that we do have some candidates missing this morning. But I want you to know that we invited everyone. I encourage all the candidates, whether or not you brought your campaign literature, to be out in the lobby at a table where you can interface with the people that have attended today. Please feel free to stop and ask these people questions, tell them if you need signs. We're all accountable to each other. They are elected officials, and we're accountable for who we put in office. So please, please take that seriously. Thank you all for coming. The 21st of October, we will be back here with the city council candidates, and we would like to see you all back, and please bring your friends with you. Thanks.